action of the transgender community that people would have already adopted it. We've never had a situation in the usage of English before that required legislation to produce a transformation in the manner in which people spoke.
Jordan Peterson, the Canadian psychologist, academic, and cultural commentator, has become one of the most polarizing figures in contemporary intellectual discourse. With his sharp critiques of political correctness, identity politics, and what he terms woke culture, Peterson has garnered both fervent support and intense criticism. His recent foray into discussions about Hollywood and its perceived alignment with these woke ideologies has only added fuel to the fire, leading to a wave of debates and discussions that traverse the boundaries of politics, culture, and societal values. Before we start, hit the like and subscribe buttons for more exclusive news. At the heart of Peterson's critique is the idea that woke culture, a term he uses to describe a set of progressive ideologies centered around identity, oppression, and social justice, has infiltrated Hollywood to the detriment of both artistic expression and societal cohesion. Peterson argues that this culture promotes a victimhood mentality, where individuals are encouraged to identify primarily with their perceived oppressions rather than their potential for agency and growth. This, according to him, has led to a stifling of creativity, as filmmakers and content creators feel pressured to adhere to a narrow set of ideological guidelines that prioritize political correctness over storytelling. One of the key aspects of Peterson's argument is his contention that Hollywood has increasingly abandoned the classical narratives that have traditionally defined great storytelling. These narratives, often centered around themes of heroism, individual struggle, and moral growth, are being replaced by stories that emphasize group identity and collective victimhood. Peterson suggests that this shift not only undermines the artistic integrity of films but also sends a harmful message to audiences. Instead of being inspired by tales of individual courage and perseverance, viewers are now being fed stories that emphasize systemic oppression and the inherent victimhood of certain groups, which he believes fosters a sense of helplessness and division. Peterson's critique extends beyond the content of films and television shows to the broader culture of Hollywood itself. He argues that the industry has become dominated by a form of groupthink, where dissenting opinions are not tolerated, and anyone who challenges the prevailing ideological orthodoxy is quickly ostracized. This, he suggests, has created a chilling effect, where writers, directors, and actors feel unable to express their true creative visions for fear of being labeled as politically incorrect or worse, being canceled. Peterson sees this as a profound threat to both artistic freedom and the cultural fabric of society. By stifling dissent and promoting a monolithic worldview, Hollywood, in Peterson's view, is contributing to the erosion of the very values that have historically underpinned Western civilization. Values such as free speech, individualism, and the pursuit of truth. Moreover, Peterson has often pointed out the irony within Hollywood's embrace of woke culture. He notes that the industry, which is ostensibly committed to social justice and equality, is rife with hypocrisy. Despite its outward signaling of progressive values, Hollywood remains a place of extreme wealth disparity, power imbalances, and, as the #MeToo movement revealed, systemic abuses of power. Peterson argues that this disconnect between Hollywood's rhetoric and reality further undermines its moral authority and reveals the shallowness of its commitment to the causes it claims to champion. He contends that many in Hollywood are more interested in virtue signaling and protecting their own reputations than in effecting meaningful social change. Peterson's critiques have not gone unnoticed, and they have sparked significant backlash, particularly from those who align with the progressive ideologies he opposes. Critics argue that Peterson's views are reactionary, and that his emphasis on traditional values and individualism fails to address the very real systemic issues that marginalized groups face. They accuse him of downplaying the importance of diversity and representation in media, arguing that the stories Hollywood is telling today are necessary to reflect the realities of an increasingly diverse society. For these critics, Peterson's defense of classical narratives and skepticism toward woke culture represents a refusal to engage with the evolving social landscape and a desire to cling to outdated notions of identity and morality. However, Peterson's supporters see his critiques as a necessary pushback against a cultural movement that they believe has gone too far. They argue that woke culture has created an environment of intellectual conformity where dissenting views are not only discouraged but actively punished. For these individuals, Peterson's defense of free speech, individualism, and traditional values resonates deeply, as they see these principles as under siege in today's society. They point to the rise of cancel culture, where individuals can be publicly shamed and ostracized for expressing opinions that deviate from the accepted norms, as evidence of the dangers of woke ideology. In this context, Peterson is seen as a champion of intellectual freedom and a bulwark against the encroachment of authoritarianism in cultural and academic institutions. Peterson's critique of Hollywood also touches on broader societal trends that he believes are being exacerbated by woke culture. He has often spoken about the dangers of collectivist ideologies, which he argues prioritize group identity over individual responsibility and agency. In his view, the emphasis on identity politics and systemic oppression in Hollywood is reflective of a larger cultural shift away from individualism and toward a form of collectivism that he sees as inherently dangerous. Peterson warns that this shift could lead to increased social fragmentation, as people are encouraged to see themselves primarily as members of oppressed or oppressor groups, rather than as individuals capable of making their own choices and determining their own destinies. This concern is particularly evident in Peterson's discussions about the impact of woke culture on younger generations. He argues that the messages being promoted by Hollywood and other cultural institutions are contributing to a sense of disillusionment and hopelessness among young people. Instead of being taught to take responsibility for their own lives and strive for personal growth, Peterson believes that young people are being told that their lives are determined by external forces beyond their control, such as systemic oppression and historical injustices. This, he argues, not only undermines their sense of agency, but also fosters resentment and division, as individuals are encouraged to see themselves as victims of a rigged system rather than as active participants in their own lives. In addition to his concerns about the impact of woke culture on young people, Peterson has also expressed alarm at the broader societal consequences of this cultural shift. He argues that the focus on identity politics and systemic oppression is leading to increased polarization and social fragmentation. By emphasizing the differences between groups rather than the commonalities that unite us, Peterson believes that woke culture is contributing to a breakdown of social cohesion and a decline in civil discourse. This, he suggests, could have serious long-term consequences for society, as it becomes increasingly difficult for people to engage in constructive dialogue and work together to address common challenges. Peterson's critique of woke culture in Hollywood is also deeply intertwined with his broader philosophical and psychological views. A central theme of Peterson's work is the idea that meaning in life is found through the pursuit of responsibility and the acceptance of individual agency. He argues that humans have a deep psychological need for purpose, which is best fulfilled through striving for personal growth and taking responsibility for one's own life. In this context, Peterson sees woke culture, with its emphasis on victimhood and systemic oppression, as fundamentally at odds with the pursuit of meaning. By encouraging people to see themselves as victims of forces beyond their control, he argues that woke culture undermines the very foundation of psychological well-being and personal fulfillment. This philosophical perspective also informs Peterson's views on the role of art and storytelling in society. He believes that the greatest stories are those that speak to universal human experiences, such as the struggle between good and evil, the quest for meaning, and the journey of personal growth. In his view, Hollywood's embrace of woke culture represents a departure from these timeless themes in favor of stories that are driven by political and ideological agendas. This, he argues, not only diminishes the artistic quality of films, but also deprives audiences of the opportunity to engage with stories that resonate on a deep, existential level. For Peterson, the power of art lies in its ability to speak to the human condition, and he believes that this power is being eroded by the dominance of woke ideology in Hollywood. If you like this video, please give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Also, could you leave your comments below and tell us, what impact will Peterson's views have on Hollywood in your opinion? We want to hear from you. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.